Hello, I'm Pamela Davis. Welcome to episode 77 of the Well Done Life podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Well Done Life podcast. You are listening to episode 77, and I am your host, Pamela Davis. If you are new here, hey, how are you? Welcome. If you've been here before, thank you for continuing to rock with me. You know I love you deep. You guys know how I like to start off every episode if you've been here before. You know, I want to make sure I set the foundation. We are building a safe space here. So I want to make sure that we are building this on the right level, on the right solid ground. So let's start with a little clarity and love. Just for clarity's sake, this is the Well Done Life podcast. This podcast is about women coming together, sharing our stories, building, growing, and learning together. I started the Well Done Life podcast because I personally feel that as women, we do not have enough opportunities to connect with each other on real levels. I think that it's very important as women for us to take an opportunity to speak to each other, to really learn from each other and get into each other's stories. Because personally, I feel like there are a lot of experiences that we've had individually that can help elevate another woman, that can help save them from a bad situation, that can encourage them to continue on and to pursue their goals. I just feel like we need to connect more. So I wanted to make sure I created that space where we could connect, because I know that we have a lot of things that are differences, but I think a lot of times when you have an opportunity to speak and can learn from each other, you'd be very surprised how similar our differences really are. So I wanted to make sure that I created that space. So welcome. Now that we have clarity, and hopefully you're sticking around because now that you're clear while you're here, I want you to stay. I want to make sure that I pepper this with love, and not even just pepper it. I want to wallpaper it all over this room and this house that we're doing. This is about love, because everything has to be rooted in love. Even the good, the bad, the ugly, it's all built that way. So when I set that time for love, I want to make sure I send you all prayers, because I think more of us need to pray for each other, to be quite honest. And I think that it's so important to help us be able to establish what this is about. So this week, I am sending each of you prayers of peace. I am sending you prayers of love and happiness. I'm sending you prayers of prosperity and prayers of strength. You know, things are crazy out here. We're all trying to get back to our normal lives, but I think we're all still trying to figure out what exactly is normal. And we're in the middle of a panini. Yeah, panini is what I call it, the panorama. You know what it is by now. And I'm not joking about it. I'm just trying to make light, because sometimes I feel like it gets so heavy that you have to, but at the same time, I know that it's really serious. So I do hope that you're each protecting yourselves and making sure that you are thinking about your health and the health of the people that you love, because that's the most important thing. You just want to be kind and considerate and empathetic to each other and protect yourselves at all costs. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just here to tell you, make sure that you prioritize that and do your own research. You know, don't get spoon-fed information. You have to figure out, because this is a critical decision, what's right for you. So do the research and do reputable research. Sorry, there's not a lot of people out sometimes on the internet streets giving good information. Make sure you go to reliable sources, but take care of yourself nonetheless. And at the same time, you know, there's also a lot of unrest in the world. We're seeing, unfortunately, a lot of tragedies with Haiti. We've seen tragedies with Cuba. Now we're seeing tragedy with Afghanistan. There's just so much information out there that, I'll be quite honest, can really weigh on your soul. And so you have to make sure that you prioritize your peace and your mental health at the same time. Your your mental health and your physical health. It all goes together. It's that 360 pie. You are that piece. So you have to make sure you are doing things that are going to really take care of all of you and all of the ones that you love at the same time. And I know that's a lot of responsibility, because But as women, that's what we do. We bear the brunts of lots of responsibilities. But that's why you're here, so that hopefully I can encourage you to keep going if you're feeling overwhelmed. Or if you're kind of feeling good, then maybe this can help inspire you to have a conversation with someone that you know that may be struggling so that they can feel better. Because women, ladies, sometimes we're all we got, and we have to definitely make sure that we capitalize on it. So before we kind of dive into this week's episode, I really want to make sure I also, along that lines of self-care and mental health, I want to thank you guys for your understanding last week. I did take off last Sunday, or this past Sunday. I didn't release a new episode just because I was overwhelmed. I was tired. I'm an empath, and I tend to carry obviously lots of thoughts and energy into my head and my soul, as well as all of my other responsibilities, just like everyone else. And sometimes I find that I need to take a break when I get overwhelmed. It is better that I sit down and just get quiet and silent. And so I listened to myself this week, and it was amazing. I really didn't do too much. I have to admit, outside of work, I did go and have lunch with two of my closest friends, excuse me. And it was so good. We had such a great time. I mean, we were out for, I would say, maybe like 2 hours together. But it was just so cool because we all got to kind of get dressed up a little bit. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I have like a closet full of clothes I have not worn. And I am dying to start pulling them out. Like I was telling one of my friends, I just had this beautiful dress I'm dying to wear. But it was coming to a point where I'm like, am I going to wear this to Trader Joe's or Publix? What I'm gonna do? Like, because I don't have really any place else to go, just trying to keep my profile kind of low in the panini, especially with Delta out here. And I'm not talking about the airline. So trying to get all that together. But what I was trying to say is, let me go back. I kind of was able to get cute, and it was just fun. I really enjoyed it. But I enjoyed the conversation. It was always great to connect with them. And I have other friends I need to do the exact same thing. I guess hopefully that's kind of like a little PSA. If you haven't had a chance to kind of connect with your girlfriends, I think we're all kind of over the Zoom calls. Try if you feel comfortable and you guys can make it work for you from a health perspective. You might want to try a little meetup, and you can do it very safely. I mean, we went to a restaurant, we sat outside, we wore a mask, we took them off to eat, and then when we got back up, when we hugged, everybody was masked up. And so we found a way to feel comfortable. Maybe try to find the way to feel comfortable for yourself, because I think we need those interactions. We need those interactions with our girlfriends, with the people that we love, so that they can help refuel and feed us. So hopefully, again, this week, you'll maybe make a plan if there's someone that you haven't talked with and connected with in a while, to set up something to do that, because, hey, you deserve a little bit of break. Just be careful no matter what you do. And I think we all kind of know that. So that kind of leads me into this week's episode. Like I said, I kind of took a break. And when I took that break, I really looked at it as my reset and reflection point. And I realized as I was sitting there kind of thinking about everything, I haven't really taken a look in a little bit in regards to where we are with the times. Like I felt very overwhelmed and there's so much going on. I said, I really just kind of want to see from a numbers perspective, where are we in this season? What's going on? What can I glean? And let me just kind of preface it for everybody. I am kind of one of those, or not kind of, I am one of those waist bead wearing, sage burning, crystal intentional, kind of Christian kind of chicks. Like, I really do believe in the power of signs, wonders, and intentions. And I feel like when we go through phases in our life and we feel overwhelmed, that's a lot of times the universe trying to send us different signals that we may need to tap into ourselves. And it doesn't necessarily mean that something challenging is coming. It just may be a season where you need to get quiet and you need to reflect on where you are, because there's another level that you're about to go to, or there's an affirmation, there's something in the wind that you need to hear. So I said, well, I need to look at where we are with this episode. I mean, we're going into episode 77, and I wanted to make sure that I kind of set the intention because when I was reading it, I was like, wow, this was really what I needed to reaffirm where I'm at right now on the journey. And so I wanted to share this with you because I'm assuming that all of us are working towards something in our lives. And if you're listening to this podcast, it's not just by happenstance. You're here because there is a word for you. There's a message in this. And so I want to make sure that you receive it along with me. So, number 77 is a very powerful number spiritually. And of course, it's powerful because it is a double number of the number 7. And the number 7 all on its own is also a very powerful number because the meaning of the number 7 means that the person carrier is right on track in life and that there's a righteous walk that needs to be continued. And 77, the person who is carrying this number with them or seeing it, they are aware that he is a bearer of an increasingly pronounced message from the divine world and that their life has great importance. These people who are aligned with this number are prone to analyzing and creating, and they have a constant urge to send their emotions and thoughts into the world. Their flaws are uncertainty and self-doubt and vulnerability. There's the inner fear of leaving. Number 77 fears that he or she will be abandoned, and that profound and dark emotions are making them inaccessible and reserved. But this fear is most likely to occur earlier in age, so when you're younger. When you're older, obviously your perspective changes, your thoughts change, so that tends to dissipate. And they are very accepting of their person, of themselves, but they are aware that they are in a mode of self-discovery. And so they tend to be people who are on a journey. And right now, it's good to know that with 77, there is a lot that is coming for us. It's a power number. This is a number again of sacred. It's a sacred number and it brings happiness. It's a symbol of eternal life and perfection. And the immense power that is doubled in this number is very strong for us and has a very strong biblical contention. And so we have to recognize that when we see this number, that we have to look at the experience and lessons learned that have play an important role in the future course of our lives. The angels are trying to remind us in this message it is considered to be a very happy sign for a person, but not in an expected way, but in a more sublime form. More specifically, this is messages, there is light in the darkness. And they are saying that you are the light and that you are going to shine a path wherever you go and that there is divineness that touches you. And I was like, wow, that's just so wonderful to hear. It's a very good message. And obviously, I know for myself, I can relate. I was born under the number 7. So I do know that I do tend to analyze a lot. And I do have fears sometimes about being vulnerable, or I did as I was younger. I think as I've gotten older, my discernment has gotten better. And I would think we're all in that phase as women. When we mature and evolve into ourselves and feel more confident, our discernment becomes more stronger because we trust ourselves a lot more. But essentially, as you have heard, this is a power number. So that means we're seeing this because we're on the right path. We're seeing this because we have to keep going. And we're seeing this because we have to remember we are a light. And that light is inside of us. And it is our mission in some form of fashion to shine that light, to impact other people. And like I said, I really thought very heavily about it and wanted to talk about it this week because the world is very noisy. It is very, very noisy. And it is very difficult sometimes when the world is so noisy to focus on what matters. Because you find yourself being pulled in so many different directions. So I wanted to kind of talk about things that I have been doing to help me stay very focused. And the reason I started doing these things again. First and foremost, I always try to be very controlled about my emotions and my thoughts. And I have to admit lately, like I said, I think with everything kind of going on in the world, I have found myself engaging more and having more conversation. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think we all have to converse and we all have to talk. But we also, when we speak, have to understand that there are sometimes times where, one, you're not in the position to say anything, because that's okay. And that's okay. We're seeing injustice in the world. We see people hurting in the world, and we want to speak on it. Sometimes you can't speak on it. Not in that particular moment. Maybe you need to take a moment to be quiet and to reflect or to research and to understand versus speaking. And there's nothing wrong with that. Actually, it's one of the best things to do. And one tip that I would totally recommend that you do, think about what you're going to say before you say it. And I've said that before in another previous podcast. But I will say this to remember along with it. It's easy to say that, but it's harder to remind yourself. And when you are trying to remind yourself of the fact that you don't need to always speak on every situation, that is a daily process, especially in times like this, where we are constantly being fed information that triggers us in some form or fashion. It is very difficult. For myself, I recently found myself having an exchange with someone on Twitter, and I normally don't do that very often. I had given my opinion in reference to one of the issues that had happened. I don't remember specifically what it was, but someone had made a comment and it triggered me because I remember having a very similar experience. So I commented on it. And the comment was very well supported. We always love to see when people like everything that we say, and that's just wonderful. And actually, it was so well supported, it went viral. And I didn't say anything too off crazy. I just was like, but it was just something I guess a lot of people could relate to. Well, long story short, someone came back and started kind of trolling me. And at first, I didn't even process it the way that I normally do. I just felt, again, I was triggered, and I allowed myself to respond back to this person. And so this person and I are going back and forth. And first and foremost, I'm not one to cuss on social media. That's just not my bag. I don't really feel like I need to articulate myself with profanity or argue with people in order to get my point across. I feel very confident in my words that I can utilize them appropriately. So it wasn't anything like that. It was just the person was just going back and forth with me. And then I had to recognize at a certain point, why am I going back and forth with someone that I don't even know? And I looked at this person's profile and they literally had like 30 followers. Not that that's an indication of anything, but they hadn't been on social media long. And I'm like, oh, this must be a bot or some type of situation like that. And I'm like, I'm wasting energy going back with the bot. So I deleted all of those comments and everything because I was like, no, it just doesn't need to be out here in the energy in the universe. And I was like, that's a sign to me that I need to, again, get quiet and reset myself because I've allowed myself to slip into those patterns. And I know I can't be the only one because I think we all do, at times, depending on what your emotional state is, you can easily be triggered and you slip into a pattern like that. So I slipped into a pattern, and after I checked myself, I was like, oh yeah, I got to delete this. I got to give myself a social media fast off of that because I don't want anything in my life to make me act outside of my character. And like I said, I was not going back and forth with this person because yes, now I specifically remember what it was. It was around vaccinations. This young lady had made a comment about someone in her family who had a hard time getting a vaccination and at one of the major drugstores, and how the people in the drugstore started to question this person. They were like, well, we need his insurance card. We need that. And everybody in the line was like, that's not true. You don't need any of that information. It's free. And I remembered, I'll be honest, I had that same situation happen with my mom. They wanted me to actually dig out her original Medicare card, not like the one that she gets because my mom has Medicare insurance through a provider, but like the one that the government sends. And I was like, why? Because no, my sister just had her vaccine and she didn't need it. why would my mom need it? And I didn't have to go through that, and I had my shot. So I was like, ma'am, and I said it, and I had to correct this young lady. And when I correct someone, I can change my tone, and I'm not playing games. And I didn't yell at anybody. I didn't cuss at her, because I'm not doing that either. But she knew I'm really not for the one. I'm not for games. So I put a GIF in there, and the GIF was of Trina. Trina, if you don't know, she's a hip hop celebrity from like Miami, and she did like the baddest bitch with Trick Daddy Dollars and all that kind of stuff. But anywho, so that GIF triggered that person, and that person came at me like, oh, sending it off as aggressive, whatever. And I said, well, I think that you are misreading that, and you don't know the full crux of the situation. I would never like abuse someone or cuss at someone to get my point across. I don't need to do that. I'm intelligent enough that I actually have a good enough vocabulary that I don't really need to do that. If I can just change the tone of my voice enough and speak to you with a little bit of bass in there, you can catch my drift. I don't really need to threaten people. That's not my bag. And like I said, well, it kind of went back and forth. And I wound up, like I said, I had to stop and check myself, because I'm like, why am I interacting with this person? But at the same time, what I have to remember, what I put out is what I get back. So if I put out energy that could elicit some type of emotion like that, I could get that back to me. And so it just was one of those lessons that I learned where I had to remind myself, Pam, you're intentional. When you're intentional, you got to be careful about everything that you do. You got to think about your mindset when you are responding to certain things. And you have to ask yourself, is it worth my response? Ultimately, that conversation wasn't worth my response, but at the same time, it was a reminder to myself to check myself, because I don't want to be something that I am not. And I think a lot of times we have to be cautious, because social media can put you in that space where you become something that you are not. So that was one of the reasons why I had to reset. And I had to take a moment to say, I don't want to go down this path. I want to make sure that I am handling myself accordingly. Because remember, we're lights. And when you're a light in the world, you want to use that light for good. And yes, you can get sucked into craziness on the internet, but you've got to know that there are limits to what you need to do. You've got to hold yourself accountable, especially in situations where people are very incensed. I mean, like I said, we have the panini to talk about. We have Haiti. We have Afghanistan. There are so many different things. We could talk about kids going back to school. We could talk about politics. All of these different things. And it doesn't mean that we don't have to have opinions. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't articulate ourselves. But we have to make sure that we are very conscious of the energy that we put out, because we know that that energy will come back in. I've talked about it a lot when I think about the 4 agreements and other books that I've read, and shared with you. It is just so important, because manifestation is real. Your intentions are real, and you really do get what you serve back out. So you want to be cautious. So that's one thing that I would suggest. So that was one of the reasons why I decided I needed to reset. And when I was resetting, I definitely have been looking back on some of the materials that I've been reading. Of course, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz is always going to be one of my favorite books, and I'm going to always recommend people check it out. And if you have not checked it out, I'm going to link it in the show notes. But essentially, the 4 Agreements are very easy. There are 4 principles that will help you live your best life. Essentially, it's don't make assumptions, don't take anything personal, always do your best, and be impeccable with your word. It really is that simple. And obviously, there's always more details in it, but I allow those tenets a lot of times to help remind me when I feel like I'm going off the path. Reel it back in, Pam, and get back on track. Because the well-done life is not going to be a perfect life. I mean, I've said that before, and I always like to tell people that everyone is an expert at this thing called life. It's just a matter of being able to tap into your gifting, your calling, your strength, in order to be able to bring that out and live the life that you want. Because all the things that you need are in you. Yes, you need other people sometimes to help bring it out of you, but it's in you. So you have to be willing to sometimes get quiet and listen to that and read things and look at things and listen to things that help you be able to tap even closer to who that special gifting is. So like I was saying, I've been kind of going back to books and stuff like that. And of course, Don Miguel Ruiz is one of my favorite, but I've also found another one. And it goes so well with number 77, with us being lights and being such a positive force in the world, that I want to make sure I talk about it. And it's called Warrior of the Light. It's an inspiration companion to The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And this book is such an amazing read. It's a short read, and it's funny how I discovered it too. I am a big Marvel fan. I love Marvel. I really do. I love it. I have seen probably every Marvel movie, and I have been obsessed with Loki on Disney Plus. My sister and I watch them, and we're obsessed with all those shows. But Loki's been great, and Jonathan Majors was in Loki. Jonathan Majors is now going to be Kang the Conqueror for Marvel. And Jonathan Majors, he's an amazing actor. He just recently was on Lovecraft Country, which was on HBO, and it was just an amazing show. But essentially, I was on YouTube, my other favorite platform, one day, and I watched this GQ spot with him talking about all the things in his bag. And one of the things that he carries in his bag is The Warrior of the Light by Paulo Coelho. And he was saying that he's, read the book several times, and it is a very light read. And he likes to carry it with him because if you read this book, seriously, it's so good. But at any point in time, you can just flip through this book and find something that can help you reset yourself. It really is. There's many different passages. It's like all these different passages of a warrior on their journey to light. And one of my favorite ones I'm going to read you that I found, that I have bookmarked in here because I have notes in here. I do carry it in my purse with me when I'm having a hard day. Now I find that it's something that I can go to when I need a reminder or something to reset. I honestly go right to this book and I just flip through it. I concentrate and I look at the passage that I have, and it gives me some strength. So I wanted to share one with you. The Warrior of the Light remembers a passage from John Bunyan. Although I have been through all that I have, I do not regret the many hardships I met, because it was they who brought me to the place I wished to reach. Now all I have is this sword, and I give it to whoever wishes to continue his pilgrimage. I carry with me the marks and scars of battle. They are the witnesses of what I suffered and the rewards of what I conquered. These are the beloved marks and scars that will open the gates of paradise to me. There was a time when I used to listen to the tales of bravery. There was a time when I only lived because I needed to live. But now I live because I am a warrior, and because I wish one day to be in the company of him for whom I have fought so hard. And that is my favorite passage in the book, one of them anyway. And I love it because it just reminds me that even through all that I've been through, even through all the scars, and we've all been through many things and have many scars, you learn what you fight for, what really matters. When we were younger, or I know for myself when I was younger, I fought for different reasons. I pulled myself together trying to be appeasing to other people, or to elevate in a career, or to do all these things. And now, or to be a support for my family. But now I find that my strength comes from God. So that reminds me to hang into that strength. And so this book is just one thing that I would recommend, or just finding a book, a resource that you can go to that can speak to your soul like that. And I'm going to link this book in the show notes, but I think it's important. And like I said, I loved how he carried it in his bag, because I think that a lot of times, we're looking for inspiration sometimes. You could be going through something instantly in a movie or, in a meeting or on a phone call, or you're just struggling through the day and you need something that you can easily grab to. And so this book is a source of inspiration for me. And I've had many different sources of inspiration. I have the Bible on my phone. Or I've had the Bible on my phone. A lot of times I have certain scriptures that I recite to myself daily. I recite the 7th Psalm every day. My sister and I pray to it. So again, it's finding a resource, finding that whatever gives you the strength to keep pushing through, you need that. Especially in times like this where we're just being pulled in so many directions. You have to have somewhere where you can go and be fulfilled again, to keep fighting the fight, to keep pushing yourself and going through. And on the back of this book, another reason why I love it so much, the title on the back of the book where you normally have the description, it is Rise to Your Destiny, because essentially it's a timeless journey to help you be able to rise to your journey. So find the things that help you rise. So I will make sure that I link that in the show notes as well. I also will link the 37th Psalm because that is a wonderful psalm. Even though, yes, I am a waist bead wearing chick, I still love Jesus. And so I want to make sure that I share that with you as well, because it is a great prayer to pray as you are going through things, or even, just to try to set the intention for the day, because it has many layers in regards to covering yourself when you are dealing with people who do not always have your best interest at heart. And then along the lines of people who don't always have your best interest at heart, I think one other thing to remember is that it is very important to be very intentional about who you give your time and attention to. I know a lot of times people like to say haters or whatever, but I think, I don't like to utilize that term personally, because I feel like people who are constantly looking to tear down other people because of something that they don't, because of something that they don't see within themselves. And to me, like a prime example that I've seen recently of that is with Sha'Carri Richardson. I know Sha'Carri Richardson, I didn't watch the race, but she recently competed against Team Jamaica, and I think it's awesome that Team Jamaica won. I love it. I love seeing women run and win, especially Black women. I love it. But I guess Sha'Carri was very boastful, and she's been in the spotlight, and she didn't perform at, I'm sure, the level that she would have wanted to perform. And I instantly saw so many people like tearing her down because she was so confident. People saying that she needs to humble herself or whatever. And I think a lot of times we have to be very cautious about how we tell people or how we feel like people should be in certain spaces. I personally love that a person is confident within themselves. I do. I think that you have to be, especially as women, especially as Black women, we have to be confident in ourselves. We have to love ourselves. We are constantly fed that if you don't love yourself, no one's going to love you. So if you don't celebrate yourself, no one's going to love you. We are constantly fed that information. And then I think it is just terrible when I see people then tearing her down for not being humble enough. Like, not being humble enough is going to, somehow magically make this woman run better. I mean, that woman has a gift. That gift came from God. God knows her journey. She's in a season right now. She's going through a lot. She lost her mother. She had to sit out of the Olympics. I mean, she's bearing a lot, and she's trying to persevere through. But that's still not enough. Like, you have to humble yourself. You have to suppress yourself. And a lot of times people expect women to constantly do that, to, diminish who our light is. And when you do that, that is not serving to who you are. That's not serving to your gift. That's not helping you elevate to your next level. All that is doing is magnifying to me, the shortcomings in other people, the lack of confidence in other people. So I think we have to be very cautious about that now. And it's very unfortunate. It's like an epidemic I've seen lately where people just love to tear other people down when they're doing well. And personally, I'm of the philosophy that if they're doing well, and celebrate. There's enough room for everybody. And maybe it's because I'm comfortable within mine. I can't run like Shakari. I never will run like fast. And even though on her worst day, she lost, but she's going up against the world's elite. On my worst day, I know I couldn't compete. And maybe that's why some people like to tear her down. But I think that it speaks to a larger, like I said, a larger issue. And I see it in regular everyday life because you have people who get insecure about someone else's success because they don't have it and they don't understand what that person did to get it. So they're uncomfortable. So when you're uncomfortable with something, you have to try to pick at it. You have to try to pull it apart. And I think that that's something that we have to fix within ourselves. When we take these moments to rest and reset, we have to look at the areas of ourselves where we are weak, where we're unsure and we're not confident, and try to fix those areas so that again that we can be the best people that we can be. And I wanted to bring that out because like I said, I think with everything that we have going on in the world, the last thing that we need to be doing is tearing each other apart. That's just adding to more pain. That's adding to more frustration. And words matter. Even though people like to act like they don't, they do. And that's why, like I told you guys, I had to check my own perception about that tweet. Even though I made sure I would never say anything that I would be ashamed of, but the fact that I even put myself in that position, I don't want to put that energy out there. I don't need that in my life. I'm too focused on other things. So why would I go back and forth with somebody about somebody's perception? I don't want to get it to a point where this person makes me act outside of my character, because we all have certain limits that we're going to go to where we're going to allow somebody to speak to us, and then all of a sudden you start to allow anger to make your decisions versus common sense. So a lot of times you got to be willing to pull yourself out of situations like that. So it's very important to make sure that you control that aspect of yourself. But then along that line, it's also very important to look deep within yourself and figure out if you are engaging with people, why you're engaging with people in a way that could not necessarily be positive, if you are being critical of other people. I just don't think we all have time for that. I think there's always something positive that can be said. It doesn't mean that you have to sugarcoat the truth, but there is always an option. You know, most of us grew up with the same philosophy. If you don't have anything to say, nice to say, don't say anything at all. You can always just keep scrolling and keep going through. I mean, hey, I'm sharing the advice I'm taking. Maybe you'll take it too. Who knows? But I think those are things that we can do that will help us have a better sense of ourselves, a better mindset, and have peace, because that's really so important right now within that time. So we've talked about quite a bit. Essentially, like I was mentioning to you, I think it's very important that you do take time to get quiet. Get very silent about, what's going on, how you're feeling, how you're processing. I do think you have to check yourselves in those quiet times, making sure that you are putting out the best possible intention with your information. Don't engage with people who try to bait you. You don't have time for arguments, and you have to be strong enough within that to not argue, to be able to pull yourself out. And if you need things to help you remind yourself why you shouldn't, I would strongly recommend that you, find a book, find a resource. I recommended, Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, as well as the Warrior of the Light by Paulo Coelho. And again, I'm going to link both of those in there. But at the same time, I think it all starts and ends with you, because remember, we're lights. So we have to feed that side of ourselves. And that feeding our side, that light, means that we look at each other with clear eyes, that we look at ourselves and we see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we make a conscious decision to do things that benefit the good and that address and heal the bad and the ugly. Because that's really what it's about, healing. You're not a bad person. It's just you are carrying something that's a pain. You're in pain, and you got to fix those pains. We all have to fix those dark sides of ourselves. And it is a constant battle. It is never going to be easy because you are going to be pulled and distracted, in many different ways. But you have to remember you are a light. And when you are a light, that means that your mission, your goal is to shine that light brightly into the world. You got to feed it because the light can diminish if we are not careful. And that's why you have to make sure you take those times for yourself where you rest and you reset and you reflect on where you are and where you are trying to go so that you can be extremely intentional on all areas of your life. And speak good over yourself. Speak good over yourself, not just other people. Speak good over you. Every step that you make, even in the midst of confusion, is a step in the right direction because you are taking a step. You're taking a chance on who you are and who you were called to be. Don't lose sight of that. Don't lose sight of it. And then know it can be challenging. And sometimes you need affirmation and you're not getting it. Learn how to affirm yourself. Learn how to speak over yourself with good and loving words. Because when you're able to do that, you're able to feed into who your heart center is, and you will naturally just start to manifest that every day because you believe it. But you got to speak it. You got to put it into action and put that work in. And if you need support, that's why we're here. That's what the World Done Life is about, honey. I'm raising my hand. As you can see, like I said, I slipped too. But I'm honest about it, and I make a point to correct it, knowing who I am and what I aspire to be, and knowing how I want to live, and knowing that the peace that I have in my life is so priceless that I will constantly make sure that I am working on myself and affirming myself and being gentle with myself in order to maintain it. Value yourself like that. You are a rare jewel. You are priceless. Give yourself the time, the energy, the space, the rest, and the reflection to be the light that you are called to be. So I hope that kind of helped give you some things to think about. This is a very powerful time. You're a light. You're being affirmed. The universe is sending good juju our way. We have many, many missions to do and many great things to accomplish. I want to thank you guys for rocking with me, like I said again this week. All of the information will be in the show notes. I will be back next week. I'm still feeling good. If I don't feel good, I'll let you know, but I think I'll be fine. I'm going to try to be gentle with myself as we go through. I can't wait to talk to you guys again next week. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and review. And I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.